Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pomerium live stream. My name is Nick Taylor and I'm a developer advocate over at Pomerium, and this is our first live stream since the new year, so happy new year to anybody I haven't said it to. So there you go, internet. Today I'm hanging out with Frédéric from Alpic. Frédéric, for folks who might not know you, and we're definitely going to get into Alpic and all that, but yourself, like, I guess people are always kind of curious, like how people got into tech or like what you've been up to. So maybe a little bio, I guess.
A little background on who I am. Yeah, for sure. First of all, thank you, Nick, for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, to tell you a little bit more about myself, I got an engineering degree. I didn't start in tech at all, actually. I started in civil engineering and building offshore pipelines and stuff like that. So not at all tech related at the beginning. I switched 10 years ago to tech. And I had at the beginning I was fearing not to be able to feel satisfied at the end of the day if I was working in tech. I love tech, but I didn't want to make it my day-to-day job because I was fearing not having the satisfaction of something built at the end of the day. Something I had in civil engineering, and I realized it was not at all the case. And it was even easier to have this satisfaction at the end of the day because I was not dependent on so many people to have a wall built at the end of the day, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Sure.
So 10 years ago, I got the opportunity to really start working in the tech space. I started as a developer, tech lead, engineering manager. I worked in RATP, I worked in BlaBlaCar, I worked in a lot of different companies, especially in France, from various stages and various sectors, various verticals. And I started my own internal business unit inside this company, dedicated to serverless technologies. I really got a lot of inspiration from having full stack team, meaning handling front end, back end, and infrastructure together in the same developers with the same skill set. Everything in TypeScript. I had very strong opinion about what would the modern full stack environment look like. And I did that for 3 years. Had the opportunity to grow the team to 30% and developed a lot of very nice projects. But I wanted to go larger and start my own venture. And so I quit this job and started 2 ventures before this one. First one in the cloud cost reduction space called Revent. At the end of the day, it became a nice open source library where folk could use construct blocks for infrastructure that could self-limit in terms of what they would cost at the end of the month. And still used from time to time, but we never made any money out of it. So I had to change for another startup in the B2B influence space. Very good also opportunity, but it ended up being more an agency than a tech product. And I went back to my original route of what I love doing in the tech space, both open source and infrastructure related. And that's how I ended up grouping with colleagues from back in school to build Alpic, the MCP hosting company that I'm here to showcase today.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. Yeah, no, it's startup life can be difficult. I've definitely worked at a bunch of small startups, and I'd say on the average, most don't succeed. I don't mean that in a negative way, but it's just like it's tough. It's a tough scene, right? But
it is.
But that's cool.
I'm
you
really
learn something.
You had the opportunity to try 3 times already.
Cool. So, well, you mentioned you teamed up with some old coworkers to work at Alpic now. So we're definitely going to touch on that today. So, like, I guess a bit of background for like both of us, I think, have been following the MCP space pretty closely for a while. Like, MCP UI came out, I think it was last summer, from Ido and Liad. And just MCP in general has just been moving along super fast. And this week, well, ChatGPT mentioned in October, they had like released the ChatGPT App Store, which I don't know, like when they first released it, because I had been working with MCPs, and it wasn't clear to me from their documentation initially, like that it was MCPs with just UI. It made it sound like it was something else for some, at least maybe I was reading the wrong thing, but it threw me off a bit. And then I was like, oh, okay, it's just an MCP. Well, not just, but and then
It's based on MCP, yeah.
yeah, so they released that in October sometime last year, and Claude just mentioned this week that apps are available in in Claude now,
Yeah.
and also there's a lot of things going on, but in the MCP working group, there's the official MCP apps now. So all that together, meaning you can build universal MCP apps now, and I guess that brings us to let's talk about Alpic.
Yeah, when we started Alpic, apps were not yet a thing. Like you said, the ChatGPT app started beginning of October. There was discussion with MCP UI of introducing UI inside the specs. But back in the day, when we started working on hosting MCP servers, it was solely MCP as its core. So tools, resources, and prompts that you could invoke from a model, from a generalist agent, for example, but nothing related to UI anywhere in the spectrum. We were waiting for that to happen. When we started Alpic, we thought it's going to take more room and gain traction a lot when company will start using MCP, not only for internal use cases where you want your employee to be able to access tools through deployed application, chat application inside the company, but also if the general public, general consumer could use it as a substitute for the internet that we know of, which is basically web application and mobile application. And we had the feeling that when ChatGPT started this in October, we were starting to dip a toe in those waters, and we were glad that it was arriving that early. We were not expecting it for another year, actually. So we were really glad that this came in so fast, really fast.
Yeah, and I'm really glad it got standardized pretty fast, because ChatGPT apps came out. They had their own API for interacting with tools and stuff. I mean, you can obviously shim these things to have like a uniform abstraction, but it's kind of nice that, well, two things. One, that MCP itself has come up with the official MCP apps. There's like a SDK or a library you can add now, and the fact that OpenAI agreed to actually go with the official one as opposed to, like, I'm sure the older one will still work for, I don't know how long, maybe they'll let it work forever, but it's kind of nice that it should just be the one API surface now. So
yeah, we'll see how it plays along. We anticipated discrepancies between clients anyway, because even if you take a look at MCP without any UI layer, any apps extensions on it, depending on the client implementing the MCP protocol, you have variation in terms of scope of support. Some support only tools, some support resources, some support prompts, and some surfaces, prompts, and resources in various ways. So it doesn't mean because you support and are compatible with a protocol that you have exactly the same experience across various clients. And we tend to see already features, like I remember recently drawing a list of all features that were present in Apps SDK, which is the ChatGPT protocol, and all the ones that were going to be released in official V1 of X apps, which is the official extension for apps of the MCP protocol. And there are quite a few discrepancies, stuff that you can do in ChatGPT that you cannot do in MCP official extension. And knowing that these discrepancies might not catch up in the general agreed upon common base, which is X apps, we planned for allowance for discrepancy in the open source framework that we build at Alpic called Skybridge, that helps you build those AI apps, whether it be ChatGPT apps or Claude apps or VS Code apps or Goose apps. And even if we rely on this common ground, we accommodate for discrepancies. And just to quote one or two of those discrepancies, in ChatGPT, you can interact and play with and upload and download files that are part of the conversation or that you want to put or recover from a widget inside the conversation, which is a part of the specs that is not at all covered on the MCP official X apps.
Okay.
So those kind of discrepancies. Another one is checkout, for example. You start to see full checkout experiences in ChatGPT apps, for example, in the Instacart or inside the Target app, where you don't need to go outside of ChatGPT to complete your checkout funnel. And these checkout APIs are parts of the apps SDK APIs that they provide inside the runtime.
Okay.
It's not part at all of X apps. And I don't see ChatGPT backing off of having transaction happening in ChatGPT. You see what I mean? So I think we will still see those discrepancies from client to client, and we want to make sure that we can accommodate for those the best we can.
Yeah. I guess it's a lighter version of the browser wars to some degree.
Yes, it is.
Like I remember web development way back. Yes, it was
where it was a struggle to develop based on people who are using Internet Explorer or Chrome, especially Internet
yeah,
Explorer.
you know,
Yeah.
document.all or whatever, all the hacks to make cross browser. But also, hey Fuzzy.
Sorry. Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying hello to Fuzzy in the chat. If you have any questions, Fuzzy, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Fred.
The comparisons that we make maybe more closely related to what we are currently seeing in the space than the browser war was the discrepancies that you have in runtime between iOS and Android. At some point before ChatGPT agreed to accept apps developed using the official apps extension from the Model Context Protocol, we were building two resources for each app, one compatible with Apps SDK runtime and one compatible with MCP app extension runtime. So we were having the same kind of build pipeline that you could find in React Native to accommodate for those two runtimes.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's because I've been working on this template and I have it. The template I made was specific to just ChatGPT apps, but because I know a bunch of people on the Goose team, they're like, oh, make it work in Goose. So I started doing feature detection to load only the certain metadata based on like not from like the HTTP refer, but you can know what the client is and so on. But then I'd started doing that, and then I saw the official release of MCP apps. I'm like, I'm just gonna make it the generic one. So, but anyways,
no, it's good strategy. Good strategy.
I did have a question because you're talking about Skybridge. I dropped a link to the open source project. Is because like for people who have actually worked on ChatGPT apps, if you look at the MIME type, it's Skybridge, and is that specific? Like, did you work with the OpenAI team? Is that why it's called Skybridge, or is that just coincidental? Or
coincidental mostly. When we started working on Skybridge, X apps was not yet a thing. So when we read the official release from OpenAI about supporting apps in ChatGPT, there was pointer to Apps SDK documentation, and we were surprised not to see an actual software development kit when we read the documentation of Apps SDK. So the initial intent when we started working on Skybridge was to build the missing SDK for ChatGPT apps. And that's why we named it Skybridge, because the name was available and it was relevant based on the name of the runtime. That Skybridge is the name of the runtime inside ChatGPT to render UI.
Okay.
Gotcha. And so that's what we started with. When X-Apps started to be implemented, we evolved Skybridge from being only ChatGPT app compatible to being X app compatible as well, by basically providing on each tool 2 resources that could be rendered depending on whose client, what client supports. Basically.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
That
Cool.
comes from there. So it's a little
Yeah.
bit of
No. Yeah. No. Because when I saw it in the ChatGPT app, I was like, wait a minute. So
I know
yeah,
this.
I was just curious. So okay, cool. Yeah, and yeah, so like I don't know how big a proliferation the explosion of apps is yet. Like I've definitely like obviously OpenAI partnered with businesses like Instacart, like you were saying. I'm sure travel ones. I haven't seen all of them, but um, it it feels like in like the early days, kind of like when iOS apps came out. So like I feel like this is a great time. Like if you're a developer, if you have an idea, like now could be the good time to just build something, and
Yeah.
Agentic's there to help you. So
Yeah, it's never been cheaper to build something, so it's time to build
yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
We often look back at 2008, which was the initial year of release of the App Store on iOS, to see similarities or discrepancies with what is happening in the AI app space. And there are a few things that are worth noting. First of all, it was the Apple way of doing things. So when they opened the App Store, there were already 500 partners on the App Store with top-notch apps, at least apps
yeah,
that were using these new mobile devices to the best of their abilities. And we even got a bit further and taking a look at what app was the most successful app during the first year of exercise of the App Store. And it was a beer drinking simulator app. I don't know if you remember this one. It's just you have it looks like it's a glass of beer, and when you pour your mobile phone, it's like you start drinking the beer. This was like a €1 download, first time download app, and it made
yeah,
at some point 20,000 per day just by people wanting to have a beer simulator on their phone.
yeah,
What's nice about this story is it's just not the type of app you would have expected to be the most popular one if you would have asked yourself the question beforehand. But
yeah,
what's nice to see about it is that this app actually reflected perfect usage of the new capabilities of the device, like the gyroscope to be able to make the beer inside the glass move
yeah,
coherently with the outside world. You wouldn't have done something similar with a desktop computer and a large flat screen. It's not practical. It's not
yeah.
feasible.
You're holding your monitor. You're like, oh, I broke
And,
another one.
and at the end of the day, I think we will have the same look back moment in 1 year when we take a look back at what people have built in the ChatGPT and Claude apps space. And we will be surprised by which app actually made it to the top very early because it leveraged new capabilities of this ecosystem. And namely, the biggest capabilities available is the presence of a large language model inside the mix. You don't have only UI and a user like you used to have in mobile and web application, but you
Yeah,
also have no model, which is the third persona in this mix. And I'm definitely wanting to see, like, we see already a lot of applications that takes advantage of having a large language model, but it looks a lot like mobile applications that we are used to from those companies and web applications that we're used to from those companies. I'm really keen on seeing who is going to be the first application that throw something new under the bus and see what it will be like, this new ecosystem of apps.
yeah, and sorry, where is Infoxicador? Sorry, I'm just looking at my friend Ruben Casas. He works over at Postman. I don't know if you know Ruben.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had him on the stream before Christmas, and he was showing me his tourism
Yeah.
ChatGPT app he
Request.
made.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah.
But But he brought up a good point. Like, it's, that the app he built, it made sense to leverage AI because it was helping, guide you around and stuff. Uh, but you know, he made a good point that some people might just retrofit their app to stick it in Chat GPT, and like, even though you can do that, there might not be any additional value aside from your client, your customer is burning tokens now. So like,
Mhm.
so it's like, to your point about like seeing what the apps people build that actually also makes sense in the context of a chat application, so or in some kind of agentic context. So yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. There are a lot of apps at the moment that feels just being taped to a large language conversation model.
Yeah.
Definitely want to see more, and I expect more in the gaming space that would very much benefit from having a conversational aspect of interaction between the user and the large language model.
Yeah.
Gaming is going to be something very nice. I expect more apps that will take leverage the new capabilities from a large language model. We developed a few of our own just to play along and see what it would be like,
Yeah.
especially apps that already rely in real life on conversations that you have with other humans that you can now play with ChatGPT or Claude,
Hmm.
which basically are murder in the valley. You need to find out who killed who based on what's the discussion with the large language model you're having is leading you towards. Or
Yeah.
I built a game of Time's Up where I see the card in the UI, but model is not aware of the word to guess, and I
Yeah.
go through until he guess the correct wording. Those kind of gaming um, gameplay, asymmetric gameplay, where you need conversation that is not solely based on clicking on buttons and interacting with deterministic UI, are going to, for sure, be a lot of what we see in this new space.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, Fuzzy in the chat, yeah, saying NPCs with ChatGPT would make Skyrim a tiny bit better.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Going to
Yeah.
burn a lot of
Yeah, no,
people.
I definitely see games in there too. And it's like, I think one thing that could be interesting too, like, I've heard people talk about, like, obviously there's a lot of talk about like AI and like, creative license and stuff, like, you know, the, using somebody's, image or video, like in movies and stuff, but like, and people aren't really keen on that. But like, one thing that I heard about is like, people are like, oh well, you could have like a chat GPT app or an MCP app where it's like, maybe you buy the app and then it's like, it's a, I don't know, like a story time maker. So like, say you have your young child, and then you could say like, I need a story. You give a few prompts, and then it like, there's some generative UI. So then all of a sudden you have this whole story, and it's like, and it's kind of never ending. It's kind of like, it's almost like choose your adventure books that keep evolving, sort of.
Yeah,
And I feel like that could be interesting.
it is. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but you can already see large language model being very good at this, even without any extension, even without any apps.
Oh
I,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
I want to see the added value of bringing something into the equation, which is not based on what the LLM can already do by itself. And
Yeah,
this is going to be fun, for sure.
yeah, for sure. Well, we've been talking a lot about the tech and digging into it a bit. I wonder if you want to maybe demo something, or if you want
Yeah.
to throw me in the hot seat, or we can do whatever you want to do. So
No, happy to show you a little bit around. If you want to follow along as I go through and see where your direction can lead to, happy to. Maybe I can give a few starting points so that people in the audience can also play along if they want to, or at least have a sense of where to start if they want to build their
okay,
own app and give it a try to build the next generation game that will take over the world. We'll see about that. So let me see if I can share my screen. Yeah, looks like I can.
oh yeah,
Okay.
here, let me just add that. 1 second, and we'll come over here. Okay, Perfect.
It's good. You can see my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the starting point to build ChatGPT and MCP apps is Skybridge, the open source framework I was mentioning earlier, that enables you to build full stack TypeScript application built for AI space, so that you can ship inside ChatGPT and Claude directly. Oh, maybe before I go into that, do you want some demo of existing application, or do you think people will already know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think it would be good to, because honestly, at least even though we've been deep in the MCP space, I've seen a lot of people online go, "Oh, cool! ChatGPT has apps, or Claude has apps now." Like it's like they're just hearing about it now. So I think it's definitely worth giving a bit of a demo.
Yeah, sure, can do. So if you want to see what kind of apps you can rely on, you have a new apps tab that you can open that lists existing apps that have made it into the official store that are able to be used inside ChatGPT. In addition to UI, the other thing that was really nice when they announced the arrival of apps into ChatGPT was the zero-click discovery or zero-click installation, which means basically that in an intentional request, you don't need to have the app installed beforehand, something that you have to do if you're working or if you're working on your iPhone or your Android phone, you need to install the app beforehand. On ChatGPT, you can just quote the app using the @ symbol or just the name of the brand. It works also. But like, for example, if I want to check with Booking if I can book an hotel for my next trip to Amsterdam, for example, I don't need to go into the app, add Booking, and then start discussion with Booking. I can straight away from the conversation directly converse with the Booking application.
Okay.
And so if I say, can I want to book a room for 2 in Amsterdam next week. What's going to happen is the MCP server of Booking.com is going to be involved into the conversation. And if a relevant tool can be used to respond to my query, the tool responses will be used to render specific UI based on my query. So here I have a small carousel presenting these different options to stay in Amsterdam next week for 2 persons. This is something similar that we can do that is a bit more advanced. Is another app that we built for something similar to Booking, which is called Cottage. Basically, house rental services for a house in the UK, in the countryside in the UK. In addition to inline experiences, you can have full screen experiences. So I'm still in ChatGPT here. I still have my input prompt here. I still have my sidebar navigation and my top navigation saying that I am inside ChatGPT. But the application UI took over the whole space of the conversation. And I have a much nicer UI to navigate from options to options for my next trip in Cornwall in the UK. Anytime I can go back into the conversation and continue dialoguing with the model. Instead of navigating by UI, I can also navigate by text. So if I say, finally, I want to go to London, it's another way to interact with the UI. I didn't change, for example, location input inside the UI. I continued the conversation with the model. And if it works, because this is an old conversation, sometimes it doesn't. It does.
That's okay. Demo, if things go sideways, no worries.
I just take a little bit of time sometimes. The performance is still something they are working on, but it's getting better every day. And so just by continuing the conversation with a model that is still present into the UI, I'm able to refresh the UI that is available and have new options that are offered. And if I go back into the conversation, I can see that I do have my 2 views that have been rendered, the initial search that I made for Cornwall and the new one I made for London.
Okay, yeah.
So it's one of the first things that people start to mingle with when they build the app is accounting for navigation based on UI. So I click on stuff, I move the map along, I open in full screen, I reduce in line, and taking into account the same navigation using the conversation. So what happens if the user prompts something else instead of clicking on this specific button? And this really complexify the quantity of paths that a user can go through that you need to anticipate and account for when developing your app to make sure the experience feels seamless.
Yeah, and I feel like a booking.com or the cottages examples you have, people might initially say, well, that's no different than booking.com itself, but there is a difference because you're using that natural language. You don't have to, what I mean, because like the old adage for at least web browsing is if it's more than 3 clicks, it's friction. And I feel like in this age, like even more than 1 click is friction nowadays. And like just being able to say like, oh, my bad, I meant, change the flight to 2 passengers. My kids aren't coming now, and we're actually going to Amsterdam instead of London now. And then, as opposed to, at least I don't know about Air France, but Air Canada, you have to restart and then you have to go do and you have to go through the whole thing again. So
yeah, it can be painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
can do more.
Sorry,
yeah, sure.
There's a question in the chat. Sorry. Fuzzy's asking, and you might not know this, but like, do you know if OpenAI, like, how much are they taking for this new privilege of putting a site on there? I mean, like, how like the Apple Store takes a piece of sales. Do you know? I imagine there's some percentage for like Claude or for OpenAI. Do you know what that is? Maybe.
I heard about a number inside an article, but I don't know how true it is. So this is a hearsay, not something I took from the documentation. It's 4% from what I heard inside transaction happening in ChatGPT.
Okay, so pretty modest actually compared to like
the 33% of the App Store, 30% of the App Store. Yes, it is for sure.
Yeah, so it's a steal. Okay, yeah.
But it's only on transactions that happened thanks to the agentic commerce protocol, which is already a transaction for which cuts are taken by Stripe.
Okay.
It's not like there is no, and it's one of the other big difference that we had compared to the App Store when it launched back in 2008, is there is no monetization options available for developers building ChatGPT MCP apps. And it's clearly stated in the general guidelines when you build ChatGPT and MCP apps that you cannot, the checkout tunnels that you might sell to use your product cannot be for digital goods, can only be for physical goods that are already sold by your business. So you have to consider currently building apps for free, so not making any profit out of it, or selling existing goods and services that your business was previously selling, and considering this as a distribution channel.
Okay. And I guess to muddy the waters a bit, like, for example, like say, like obviously there's physical books, but if, you sell ebooks, I would kind of quantify them as air quotes physical, but
digital services is a bit too large. It's like do not sell membership to use your app just because it's a membership to use your app inside. You see what I mean?
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah. Okay. No, that's cool. But that I guess the cool thing too about this is, and it's I'm saying the obvious is, but like we're building these apps, we're able to leverage the existing web tech we already know, which is huge, and so like I think one, in terms of like developers building these things, assuming you're a web developer, you already have these skills, so I feel like the friction to build these is a lot less, and there's obviously different things to take into consideration. Like it's in an iframe, and the widths and stuff will not be like, you can't do the viewport of like the browser window and stuff necessarily. Well, you could in the iframe, I guess, but like, I mean, it's just a different format is all. But it's still web tech at the end of the day, which I find really awesome.
Yes, it's not like Swift or Kotlin. You don't need to embrace a whole new language and a whole new ecosystem, a new OS. It's lighter in terms of what needs to be known before you can jump ahead and start building.
Yeah, cool.
You have,
okay,
of course,
yeah.
API specific to this new paradigm, but it's just APIs. Like you need to understand how it works. You need to understand what you can do with this third persona, which is a model inside the tri-party that is an application, an AI application. But you can rely on the existing knowledge you have of TypeScript and web development to build those apps, for sure.
Yeah, cool. Well, that demo that you gave was pretty cool. It was actually better than the Booking.com one. But I don't know if you want to. Maybe we could. You had the Skybridge repo open before. Do you want to maybe dig into that, and we can talk about, I guess, what Skybridge gives you? What's the tech stack? Like, obviously, it's TypeScript, but
it is TypeScript all the way. As I mentioned before, I'm a huge fan of having type safety from end to end. Plus, it does help a lot coding agents to have the same kind of type safety from end to end. So we built Skybridge from the ground up using TypeScript, especially also because if you're building AI apps, you have to rely on UI parts that can only be bring today consistently using JavaScript more than TypeScript or JavaScript. Whether you use React, Svelte, or Angular, or any other framework for building apps, single-page apps. We choose React, but you could go along with another framework if you wanted to. However, having this part of UI inside the mix encouraged us to also build the backend, let's say, of an AI app, which is the MCP server, in TypeScript as well, to be able to leverage end-to-end type safety.
Yeah, for sure.
This doesn't prevent you from bringing your own MCP server already built using Rust, Python, any other languages that you might want to. You will have less bits of Skybridge that you can use out of the box because we only provide so much for full end-to-end experiences. But you can bring stuff even if you already have built your MCP server in Python. Especially all the convenient APIs that we provide to build those apps that are more convenient than window.openai for those of you who already built apps in the apps SDK space, especially giving you the comfort of modern hooks, modern React hooks. But if you don't have anything existing, Skybridge is a way to start. It provides you with the scaffolding to build an app, including the MCP server and the UI widget. One way to start it very fast is to use the npm create command that we provide. I can continue the demo on my terminal. Do you see my terminal, just to make sure it's big enough?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So using the create command, you can quick start a project. I will quick start a project of, let's say, capitals of the world. It's an example I like to give to explore the various capitals that are available on Earth, various places that you can visit. It will prompt me if I want to install the dependencies and start the project right away, which I'm going to do in order to show a little bit what the base scaffold project looks like and what's the dev tools that we built on Skybridge to help you work in your development environment and iterate quickly looks like. So now it's going to install the dependencies. And as soon as it's finished installing the dependencies, it's going to start the Skybridge development server. The Skybridge development server is available locally on the port 3000. So if I take a look at what it looks like, it's a small application that provides convenient tooling to interact with the local process, local app running on your computer. This development tools does not involve any large language model. It's just a dev tool to interact with your MCP server and interact with the UI components that are going to be rendered into a conversation. The scaffold project, demo project that we have consists of those big magic 8 balls that you ask questions to and that come up with an answer that is vague enough for you to interpret as you want. It's one of those that we built. So the server comes packed with a single question tool to be able to ask question. So how am I today, for example, could be a question I ask to the 8 ball. I have the ability to trigger tool call anytime I want, so they are really going to hit my dev server that is running locally. I have an inspector to take a look at answers that will be provided by my MCP server, for example, including the fact that I can't count on it today for being, I don't know how this answer is relevant for the question asked, but why not? And of course, if the tools comes with instruction to render a widget, I have the ability to see a preview of what it would look like in this part here.
Okay.
So convenient little dev tool, which is quite useful to work on this kind of project. I will have a look at the project that's been scaffolded. I don't remember which name I put.
You called it places or
capital of the world.
That's capitals of the world.
So if you take a look at the scaffold of the project, you have everything at the root, 2 folders, one server, which is basically everything related to the MCP server, and one web that includes all the various widgets that can be rendered in responses of tools being called on your server. Like I demonstrated in the DevTools, there is one tool, which is called Magic 8 Balls, that will render one widget with basically a React component that is the 8 ball showing the question and the answer. And as expected from a very modern development environment, if I do any modification into my code base, for example, instead of actually showing the question that was asked, I said, this is the answer. And I go back to my dev tool, I can see the widget being updated straight away, thanks to the hot module reload feature of Vite, which is the router that we packaged inside Skybridge to be able to do the rendering, and especially the dev server rendering. So whenever you're building your app, whether it be by making modification by yourself or using a coding agent to do those modifications, you can always rely on the dev tool to take a look at what are going to be the impact of the change you make without having to go through the hassle of starting a conversation with ChatGPT, waiting for ChatGPT to call your tool, and waiting the runtime of ChatGPT to render the widget in response of your tool, which if you have built in the space, you know is going to take between 30 seconds and 1 minute total to do all the round trip. So when you work on those kind of apps, it's nice to have a fast feedback, fast iteration loop. And we really wanted to offer this one with dev tools that are packaged with Skybridge.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's super cool. Yeah, I felt something similar to this, and because I mentioned to you this, I think on the OpenAI forum, how I'd saw like part of your conversation on the context, the MCP Dev Summit online stuff. When you were talking about it, I didn't know you were talking about some special script injected, and I guess because like you were limited for time, I didn't realize you meant just hot module reloading, because like that I basically that's what I did. I mean, because that's just regular web dev, right? So it's but
nothing new under the sun. But when we started working on this new ecosystem inside conversation with ChatGPT, we realized that there was so much lacking from modern development experience that we were used to working in React or any other ecosystem. And so we started assembling the pieces of what was missing. Like our starting point were the example apps from OpenAI and the example apps from MCP official app extension repository. And both of those example apps rely on building your app every time you do a change in order to see the change being reflected into the UI, which is not something I would recommend for a modern environment, including UI. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And I was also surprised with because like when OpenAI released the ChatGPT apps and they had the pizza demo, I was actually very surprised that it was a server sent events MCP server and not an HTTP streamable.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if that's just because they had to rush it out or whatever, but like that just didn't make sense to me. But that's maybe neither here nor there. But I was like, and I don't know. I felt like that demo example wasn't really I mean, a pizza store is a good example, kind of like, the Instacart, I guess. But like, I found it wasn't like I got it all working, but it wasn't very clear how to get it running really well. Like, I don't know. Anyways, so yeah, but I was definitely surprised by SSE. So anyways.
They did. I assume they had a lot of pressure to put everything together for a release at the beginning of October, and the amount of work they had to go through to make it work on thousands and thousands of conversations must be something very hard to do. But because of this, some experiences, especially for developer, was lacking in terms of what could be expected from a modern environment. And we didn't blame them, but we tried to fill in the gaps by providing the missing pieces for this kind of developer experiences.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, I mean, the other thing too with like having like the modern dev stack is with the hot module overloading and React refresh is like, to your point about like, even if like you're testing it in your demo environment here, like in the dev tools, but at some point you're obviously going to test it in the actual app. Sorry, in the actual like harness, which is like ChatGPT or Claude. And even in there, you could still run it in dev mode and you're not burning tokens. Like it rendered the thing and you're like, oh, I didn't want that label to show up there. You can still modify it. It doesn't generate new tokens because it's just updating the UI. So I think that's the other thing that's nice about that,
Yeah, this is the next step that we provide. So when you iterate without any conversation and without any token consumption directly into the dev tools, it's one way to do it. But at some point, you want to check, for example, that it behaves correctly into the conversation in line with ChatGPT or Claude. And you can do that anytime. So you just need to expose the same port that serves your application to the internet using ngrok or Cloudflare, for example. And this application you can use directly into a new application in ChatGPT or inside Claude, for example. I can create one here saying it's capitals of the world local, and it's available on /MCP of my exposed server. And I will be able to see what I've built so far into the context of a conversation here with ChatGPT, but I can do the same with Claude also. I can use it. So capital of the world. What is my mood today? Up. Which is another question I'm pretty sure it's going to be able to answer very well. I need to choose better my questions. And here I'm going to have the same tool and the same widget rendering. Oh, where did the ball go? It's going everywhere.
Oh,
I made a modification.
No, this happened to me with one of mine, and I think it had to do with the HTML height, like the HTML element. This literally happened to me like 2 weeks ago. I think you just have to set it to 100% or something, but I'm pretty sure that's what I did. Well, there's the container, but I think like the actual I'm assuming you're using Tailwind or.
No, it's just pure CSS, this example. We wanted to make it as light as possible so that people can still choose whichever technology they want to use. So the scaffold project is bare minimum and it's pure CSS. And if I put 200 pixels, it works like a charm.
Oh yeah, there. Yeah, no, it seems like it. Yeah.
I do have the hot module reload, so if I put 300, I'm going to have 300 right away, even inside ChatGPT. So and also inside the component itself. So if here I don't want this is the answer, but I want to go back to the actual question that was asked, I can go back to that right away. Which is
that's
always good to still have this hot module reload and React refresh experience directly inside the conversation. But the dev tool itself saves me the trouble of having to play along with asking questions and making sure ChatGPT call my tool. I can execute this tool right away. And I also can impact on the context outside of the rendering of my UI without having to trigger it. For example, let's make it a little bit more clear. We have another very useful hook that we provide, which is use layout, which gives me information about layouts currently used to render my widget. And there is one thing that I can use, which is the theme that is being used, whether it's the theme of the system or always dark or always light. And I can, for example, show you what the theme is. And showing the theme is not very useful as it is, but it can impact, for example, the rendering of my background color if I want to. And here I am in light theme, but if I wanted to test that it works correctly in dark theme, I would have to modify my system, or I would have to modify my settings inside the ChatGPT. No, I can do it straight away. If I go inside the DevTools, I have a properties tab that allows me to change this theme as I want, and I can see the impact on the widget straight away, which is also a convenience of development to avoid having to make actions that actually triggers updates of properties that are being passed to my widget. I can define them. If I want to put in full screen my widget and see what impacts it has on how it renders, I can do it just by selecting a value inside the dropdown. I don't have to make all the action necessary to go into this full screen mode.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
No, definitely. And I guess one question, like, so obviously the dev tools here are obviously to help you develop it. I'm saying the obvious there, but I know there's tools like, there's obviously the MCP inspector. This is not meant to replace that, right? This is really just to test the UI, right?
Yes, correct. MCP Jam or MCP Inspector are two very great tools. I do have small preferences for MCP Jam, but I use it at a later stage. This is very early on in the development to have fast iteration on my local process, and I don't need to start something else. I want to have it packaged together with the server I'm running locally in dev, and so that's why we package these dev tools as part of Skybridge.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of MCP Jam as well. That was just why I was bringing it up, because I know they have like the tool. Obviously, they do all the stuff MCP Inspector does, and then you can also check the resources, and you can make a tool call. But this is, I see what you mean. So you're not trying to replace it.
No.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the debug tool that they provided for auth inspection and understanding where it goes wrong into the process of dynamic client registration and token authorization and token handling is awesome. And we don't want at all to cope for these situations. What we built with the DevTools was just what was needed to render what code is inside your Skybridge application. That's all.
Yeah. And I guess also just a few questions. Like I'm sure you've used Storybook quite a bit. Or I've used it. The template I made, I added it, but I'm guessing in your case here, since you have the viewer in the dev tools, Storybook doesn't really seem necessary in your use case. Would that be correct, or?
We start to ask ourselves the question to go even further, and one thing I wanted to share was we started working on skills to help you build Skybridge application.
Okay.
We also wanted to work on some of them that could help refine and test the actual rendering of your UI directly into ChatGPT and into Claude, and rely on those rather than storybooks or pixel perfect snapshot testing or this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So just because I mean it is a separate tool, obviously, and like but like I feel like this is probably good enough to build out what you need to do.
At least at the beginning when you want to iterate fast on your server. But I can give you an example of what it could look like. So at the beginning of the demo, I wanted to build the capital of the world. At the moment, it's not at all an explorer of the capitals of the world. So I'm going to make just that. I'm not going to make it myself. I'm going to get some help from a cursor here. And I can start by recovering the skills that we made to be able to build apps using Skybridge. I'm using the skills from Vercel to do that. And the skill I'm adding is the Alpic AI Skybridge skill.
Okay.
When I do that, it's going to clone the repository and to install it for cursor inside the project with Symlink and install it. So now I have my skill that is available here. I can check quickly into the cursor settings that I do, but now it should be okay. Skills, ChatGPT App Builder, that is going to help you build your app. And I can go right away and say, help me build a capital of the world ChatGPT app. This needs to show a map in full screen with capitals of every country. I can select capitals to learn additional info in a right side pane navigation panel. Well, let's go with that. We'll see where it goes. And we put a lot of efforts into every information that needs to be known in order to do properly a ChatGPT or a Claude MCP app, any AI app really out there. So if you take a look at the skills, you will see a lot of information that is packaged. And we've been playing around with it quite a lot. It's able, without too much interaction, for simple application to one-shot very good and very well-working application. As usual, doing a demo live is a place for disaster. So this goes very fast.
Hashtag YOLO,
But we'll see. Maybe it's going to be very good at what it does. I hope so. And it's a good way anyway to really start building. So it does a spec.md at the beginning just to make sure it understands everything. I can always go back to the spec to make modification, to make amends, and ask to build based on those modifications. So a way to keep track, like the plan that you would use normally into cursor.
Okay.
But we added this one. At the moment, it's going to list apparently all the capitals one by one that it wants to put on the map. That's one way to do it. Maybe I would have used an open API to do that, but wanted to go the fast way of actually putting everything together. And while it works, just maybe a quick word on the documentation that you might want to take a look at after building first application with the skill. We put together as much as possible of what we learned building application in the ChatGPT and the Claude space. You have a lot, especially regarding context. I mentioned before that you now have two different ways to interact between the user and the service through the model conversing and through the widget interacting. So we put a lot of efforts about how to flow from one to the other what tools can you use, what API you can use, and what kind of patterns we see emerge for those new applications. Especially one that I like very much is the widget to model context thinking, which is a whole topic on itself. That is the ability to, when, for example, building this capital of the world app, if after navigating the UX, clicking on Paris, I'm presented with details about Paris, and if I want to ask a question, I don't want the model to be lost and still remember that the initial rendering of the map was made using Barcelona or any other city as the starting point of the conversation, and answer completely outside of what I was asking because I changed the context of the applications using the UI. This context thinking is one way to cope for that and to always feed the model with updated information about what the user is actually looking at on the UI and what change it made that brought him at this point specifically. We made that possible using a new attribute that you can put on any React node inside your application that allows you to specify information that will be fed to the model if the component is rendered. So, for example, if you list flights that are available to go from A to B, and you want the model to be aware of the flight options that are shown on screen, you can add those information in the form of text that will be packed together. So all nodes that expose this information will be, we will recover the text from, and we will persist this context into the model so that if you continue having a conversation with the model, it knows from where to catch up on.
Okay, and that's just regular HTML data attributes, which is kind of nice. So it's just literal text embedded.
Yeah, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel, but we did want to make the API as simple as possible and as simple to understand as possible. So we follow along with the data dash format, usual format, and we make this one specifically for the model context using the data element.
Oh, that's cool.
Let's see where we are. We're still building the.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
There was. There's something I can show you after if you want, because you're using ngrok, like where I work. So we basically we're not an AI company, but we're really good at just securing internal applications or just an MCP as well, just because it's at layer 7 in the network stack. So we have it's using native SSH. You can get a reverse tunnel that just gives you a URL, a public URL, because we didn't really get into that, but like with the ngrok or like, port forwarding in VS Code or the reverse tunneling we do, you need that public URL for any of the cloud-based like Claude or ChatGPT, because obviously you can't reach your local host. It's different if you're in VS Code or like, so, but the interesting thing we do is, aside from obviously giving you a public URL, because we secure things, like we have policies and we handle the whole OAuth flow for you. So it's like, so you get the tunnel and you get OAuth out of the box. And then like, obviously, if you were to use our platform to like secure your things, then you would obviously have that for production too. But this way, you don't need any additional software, because I know like ngrok, I mean, you have to sign up for an account just so you can actually use it, but it doesn't cost anything. But I know ngrok, I think after one tunnel, there's a fee, I think, and
you can open more than one tunnel. We've been on the lookout for a good tunneling solution out there to package directly within Skybridge, and we didn't find any. We looked at Cloudflare, we looked at ngrok, we looked at OpenTunnel, which is the open source solution for tunneling, but none of them were to the extent what we were looking for to just expose your application without module reload, which is the hard part because you need to also expose a WebSocket, a secure WebSocket connection. Would that be something feasible with what you are providing?
Yeah, it works out of the box with WebSockets, because like because I'm always building things with it. So, and obviously with HMR and Vite, you need WebSockets. So it definitely works. Like we can definitely chat another day after, but if you
Yeah,
want, I can
would love
show
to.
you a quick demo at the end there if you want. So
Yeah, would love to. Yeah, for sure.
cool. All right. Okay, so it looks like we got to the build stage here, I think.
Yes, we did. And if you look at the dev tools first, you see that we now have a new tool, which is called Explore Capitals, asking for a region. I think we can go for Europe, maybe. What it does is it gives me apparently a list of capital, and I have a blank screen. Okay, maybe I'm going to allow him, because I'm currently running the start command from the beginning, and that's why it doesn't. It's not able to start the dev command itself. So now he wants to start it to check for problems.
Okay.
Let's see if he finds out the problem.
Yeah, my friend Fuzzy in the chat, he's concerned about not your particular framework, but he feels like obviously he hasn't used any of this stuff yet, but he feels like it's all just kind of cobbled together, and he's concerned. But like there's obviously we haven't gone into the security about these things, but there's the sandboxed iframe. Like I don't think we have time to go into all that probably, but it's not just like, hey, I just hacked an iframe and I'm in ChatGPT. There's definitely more thought to it than just that.
Yeah, it's actually a double iframe even. So they made sure to sandbox every interaction that an app could already add on the page. There is a content security policy that is very strict also, for which you need to list all outside interaction your widget needs to have, including APIs or assets, content delivery network server that you might want to connect to recover stuff. And they do inspect those lists of servers that are part of the CSP before allowing you to reach production to make sure you can't do any harm to people using your app. So until then, you can modify as much as you want, but you're the only one being affected by it. The only one being
you're hacking yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Hitting yourself in the foot, which is nice. So let's see. So the run dev command is running. Okay, so now I have a map. I can select a capital. Okay, shows me a few things. I can go full screen. I can go back outside of the screen. So here I have selected Bern. I can select Andorra, Madrid. So now I have a full working application from what it looks like.
Yeah. I gotta say, that's pretty cool given the skill that you loaded. That's pretty impressive, the one shot.
Yeah, I'm impressed too. I have been impressed quite a few times with these skills, to be honest. So it's open, it's out there already. So feel free to use it as much as possible and give us feedback on what works and what doesn't. But I feel like a lot of people are going to be able to hack stuff around very quickly with this skill. Do we still have a little bit of time to show what happens after you work locally with the DevTools and with Ngrok, or are we already reaching the end of the session?
We're at the official end, but I definitely have time to keep talking. I know it's you're in France, it's a little later, obviously, so I'm good to chat as long as you have time. So
yeah, I have a few minutes more to spare, so happy to show what comes next. Because when you build your app, you try out and it works well locally. You want people to be able to experience the same thing, and so we built a few tools to be able to do just that. I'm just going to stop my terminal. I'm going to initiate a Git repository to add everything inside and commit it with an initial commit. I'm going to create a repo for this. We're using GitHub repo create, yes. And I will call it.
I love the GitHub CLI, it's so good.
Yes, it's very good. I love it so much too. This one will be capitals of the world. Should be good to go. Yeah, I'm going to push it. Okay, so now everything I made locally is available in my GitHub repository. And in addition to the open source framework Skybridge that I just showed, we do have MCP and app hosting platform, which is called Alpic.
Okay.
You can access on app.alpic.ai. That supports out-of-the-box project that have been built using Skybridge. So very quickly, you have a very generous free tier to start working on it. So you can deploy your application as soon as you finish vibe coding it with Cursor or with Claude or with Codex. You can connect your GitHub repository and your GitHub account, and the GitHub repository I just made is available to start deploying this project. I have a few configurations I can tweak around if I want to, but I'm going to deploy straight away as is. And it's going to start a deployment process and provide me with URLs that I can use to share my server, submit this server for application into the ChatGPT App Store or the Claude App Store, and also provide me with a playground, which is emulation of the ChatGPT or Claude experience that you would have if you had this application connected, which is very convenient. So it's a full emulation. You have the conversation, you have the LLM, you have the token being paid for also, so you don't need to provide anything. And with this playground URL, you are basically able to share your project without having people go through the hassle of configuring a custom server on ChatGPT or on Claude before you're available on the store. So we have quite a few available, waiting for this one to deploy. Inside the showcase section of Skybridge, there is a Capital Explorer that is available. There is a carousel for e-commerce. There is the Everything app that basically packages everything. And there is a productivity demo. I will try the productivity one, for example. So there is always a try demo that is available. And you can see that it's a /try, like the same one that we provide for the project that you started. For each server, you have a list of available tools that you can use, as well as connection instruction for all the major clients out there if you want people to use them inside their environment. But out of the box, you have the conversation here, and you can say, show me the number from yesterday, for example. I don't know if this one is going to work. Yeah, it does. So here I have the conversation as usual. It's much faster because it's lighter also than ChatGPT and Claude, but it did the tool call. I can inspect if I want to, and it did the widget rendering, which is part of the application that I deployed, so that I just have to share. There is no login page. There is no login screen. I can share this URL with anyone I want to show what I built before it's available on the store, which we find something very convenient for people to be able to share what they built before they have to go through the hassle of submitting an application.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I guess this is like a minimal MCP client, I guess?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Minimal LLM, minimal instruction with your MCP client, your MCP server connected to it through an MCP client, everything packaged together to give you the same experience that you would find into ChatGPT or Claude or VS Code or Goose, but without having to configure anything.
Okay. It's cracking me up a bit because like when we started to secure MCPs last, I think it was May, I made a demo for the AI World Fair, and I basically made a minimal MCP client, and it's just funny because I'm seeing a lot of stuff you built. I'm like, I guess I was on the right track with stuff I was doing. So.
Yeah. Did you keep it? All the stuff that you built back in the day?
Oh yeah, it's in a public repo. I actually use it at work too, but yeah, it's the next step I was gonna do was I was gonna just leverage some models to just make it MCP app compliant, because right now you can use MCPs in it, but it's only for the textual ones. It has. I also implemented like the code interpreter from OpenAI, so like it can generate images and charts, but that's not MCP. That's just their ephemeral containers. But But yeah, well, I feel validated. Okay, good.
You are.
Yeah. No, this is super cool. So it's like, and I guess this is the thing. Like, somebody can say, here's an MCP app, go ahead and build one like it. But like, just having all these tools, like it's just like regular web dev. Like, you can create some kind of template, but if it doesn't have the modern stuff, it's like people aren't going to want to use it. So, like, and I think it's kind of, it's table stakes to expect hot module reloading, React refresh if you're using React. So it's like, this is all really nicely packaged. So this looks really great. I know we're a bit over there. I don't know if you got a few minutes. I can show you what I was talking about, the tunneling. Cool. Yeah, cool. And yeah, and if you want, we can talk more another day about it. But I've got the restream on my main screen, so let me just take that off. But 1 second. Okay, and I just need a new screen. Okay, cool. Okay. Partager écran. All right, let's go. Hold on a sec here. Why is my thing freezing? Hold on a sec. Okay, there we go. Entire screen. Voila. Okay, cool. You should be able to see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, let's open up code. And a little ghosty. Okay, so the first thing you just need to do is you just run dash. So we have a domain, so you can run, let me zoom this in here. You just run this ssh-r0.pom.run. This is gonna, so there's a few things here. This is secured, so like we're what's called an identity aware proxy. So it's not just a login, it's like there's login and then there's also checks on a policy and stuff. So I'm just gonna go ahead and log in here. It's gonna open up a browser window and I'm already logged in. Of course, it opened on another screen, but so I'm already logged in here. I'm just going to authorize, and then all of a sudden I have this TUI that's started. And then if I come into, and you can see I have an active one here. I'm actually logged in as the wrong person, but that's okay.
Does that mean you already have a process running on port 8080 on your machine?
I haven't started it yet, but that's where it defaults to. So if I come over here and I'll have to clone the repo, or no, I'll just open it. Sorry. Okay, am I on the main branch? Yes, I am. Okay, just a sec. Okay. So it's similar to yours. Like it obviously starts up a MCP server. It's running on port 8080. This is just using Vite. So like if I come to here, this is because there's no session, but it's working over here.
It's a legitimate answer from the MCP server.
Yeah. So, but if I go to pomerium.com, like I said, it's tunneling. Like I know ngrok, you have to log in as well. So if I come here, am I logged in as the right one? I think this is it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So basically, you get a route right away, and this is the URL. And there's not much to it. It's basically saying, so I can talk to you more another day about an identity aware proxy, but essentially part of it is a reverse proxy. So assuming you're logged in and policy checks pass, so like I'm gonna create a policy here. I'm just gonna say me, and I'll say add an allow block, and I'll just say domain is pomerium.com, which is my email. Of course, it's gonna do this while I'm in the middle of this, of course. All right, let me log out as login as me. But basically the main point is you get that tunnel immediately. So you have a public URL, but it's not just that. You also end up getting you get the whole OAuth out of the box with it too. So okay, so let's go to this one, I guess.
So nobody that found out about your public URL can use the tunnel back to your machine because it needs to be authenticated based on the policies that you provided.
Yeah, exactly. And the policies can be very simple. Like it could just be like check that the email is like pomerium.com, but the policy could also be stricter, like or complex. Like it could be like you can only use this Monday to Friday. You use this, there's all the other stuff like RBAC and stuff too. There's like device posture. So like you could say like, oh, you can use this, but oh, you're not on your like company device, so you actually can't use the MCP. So like there's a bunch of things you can set up. But if we come here, okay, so that's running, and let me grab that URL, and I'm just gonna have to log out here because I'm logged in as the
user
person.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try this again. Okay, this should be me.
Yeah, the other one doesn't have your picture from what I remember, so it should be you.
Yeah, it's still me. Okay, let me log out. Okay. Okay, now it'll work if I do it again. Let's do this one more time. This is the beauty of demos.
But okay, we know it's
so, yeah. So it's me now. So okay, so that's good. We have a tunnel. Okay, yeah, it's definitely me. We have my 3 here. So if I come over to the public URL and I go to here, it's obviously still going to give that MCP error that's expected. I'm also not allowed. This is the different part here. The public, you saw it just said it gave a session error for the MCP. In this particular case, because of the policies, it's actually not even allowing me to even view it. So let's go to, I'm going to do it in ChatGPT because I haven't tested this in, it's only set up for ChatGPT at the moment, but let's just go ahead and create a new one, and we'll go settings, apps, create an app, and we'll just call this Echotastic. This is it. There's a default tool. It just echoes what you say. So, and then like you were demoing before, you didn't enable OAuth. In this case, I'm going to enable OAuth. And I'm going to go ahead and create it. And also just to bring it back, like all I had to do for this was I started the tunnel. I obviously have to sign up for an account, but like after that, the OAuth will be provided for you out of the box. Okay. Oh, I didn't start my server, or I stopped it or something. Let's do that again. Cool. And that's still good. It looks like it. Okay. Let's try one more time. I didn't set this up to be ready for this, so if it goes boom, that's okay.
It's live debugging as we go through.
Yeah, but essentially it should, okay, yeah. Okay, now something's messed up at the moment, but because it's not loading my tools, but we can try it anyways. I don't think it's gonna do anything, but we'll see. Hello. I have a feeling it's gonna fail, but okay, yeah, it's broken. All right, anyways, I won't go into it any further right now, but like the main thing was, because like I've been messing around with my repo, but the main thing was to show the tunneling, that you can just get out of the box for free. There's no additional software. You don't need like the ngrok installed, and basically you'll get the OAuth out of the box. And anyways, that's it.
Can you provide porting to multiple ports, like the discussion we had on React on automodule reload that requires a WebSocket? This WebSocket usually has to live on the same domain as the domain you load the MCP server and the widget from. Is it okay to have everything on multiple ports exposed on the same subdomain? Because I see different ones in the list that you show for different ports.
Yeah, it's the way I have it for development is a little different. Right now, port 444 is where the widgets are served.
Yeah.
So when you go to the MCP server, uh, I think I know what's going on. They're deploying. I just saw on the Slack they're deploying something, so I might have used it at the wrong time. But yeah, so the MCP widgets are running on port 444, and like
Okay.
those are the static assets.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a smoke and mirrors trick for local dev. So the actual MCP URL, which I have the public URL, that's
Yeah.
secured, and that's what renders the tool calls and stuff. But
Yeah.
it is able to render the localhost 444 because I'm on my local machine. So it's kind of like a trick a bit.
Yeah.
But
Okay. It
you
does not
could
go
you
through
could
the
have
tunnel.
two routes open though.
Yeah. But
The
then
the thing you have to do there, yeah.
yeah, we currently use the same strategy where only the tool calls actually use the tunnel because that's the only part that needs to be accessible from the internet when you're working locally.
Okay, so you're the
UI
same
that
thing. Okay,
renders, UI that renders on your navigator doesn't need to go through the tunnel. And it's fun that
yeah,
you mentioned that because we were having the conversation with folks from OpenAI for ChatGPT, and they say, yes, we will open local access network for developer mode for developing widget and be able to
yeah,
access assets locally. We're having the same conversation with folks from Cloud AI team, and they have different opinions on the matter. So we'll see how it goes. We hope
yeah.
we will reach some consensus on using local access network because it's so much more convenient than having to go everything through the tunnel.
Yeah, exactly. And then like if you have the two ports, like you have to have two public URLs, then there's
And
the
then,
CSP stuff, which you can obviously manage, but
yeah,
for
but
local
adding to
development, it's
this,
friction,
yeah,
So
yeah,
the, the only disadvantage to this, which I'm sure you're aware of, is if like you wanted to say, hey, check out my MCP I'm using, and you share that ngrok or Pomerium URL,
doesn't
it's
work
gonna
anymore.
do everything, but they're not gonna see any UI. So
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
it's good if you have the option. On Skybridge, you can use dev with an option for a forwarded host header that, for example, allows people to develop in ChatGPT on their mobile. We have been asked that for a lot. You can add the connector and then use on your mobile the app that you just created and be able to stream everything from the tunnel that you exposed using Skybridge, and you are able to see how it renders inside your mobile. But you don't have fast
Okay.
hot reload. You don't have hot modular reload. You're still able to
Okay.
tunnel everything, but it's good that you have the option to do it, not to have the not to be obliged to do it all the time, even when you don't need to pass everything through the tunnel.
Exactly, because like from a developer standpoint, you don't want any friction. Obviously, production deployment's different, but like if you're just trying to build initially, and and that's the other thing like that we're trying to promote is like because I don't know, I'm sure you've been to a lot of MCP events or AI stuff. Everybody's enjoying building these things, but nobody's really talking about security. So
It's YOLO mode everywhere.
yeah, yeah,
It's going to
but
be secure at some
yeah.
point.
Well, listen, Frederick, I know it's getting late for you now, and I know we went over about like 15 minutes, but definitely appreciate seeing everything.
Yeah, but it
What
was
you and the
very
team have,
enjoyable. It was very
yeah,
enjoyable.
what you and the team have built is super cool, and I like I said, I definitely feel validated about everything I've kind of built without knowing that's exactly well, not
Good.
exactly what you did, um, but yeah, if you want, like I said, I can chat more. I clearly broke something on my local because I've been doing local dev on some stuff recently, but yeah, happy to show you it working another day. But
Good
I
luck with it.
I'm obviously biased, but I think it's a genuinely good solution, and it removes the friction of like nobody wants to implement OAuth. Like at least people I know, I never hear anybody say like, "Hey, it's Friday. Let's go grab a beer and implement some OAuth." So
Nobody does that, for sure.
yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, listen, yeah, I'll drop a link to Alpic again for people if they want to check it out.
Yeah,
Also, check out the Skybridge open source framework. Frederick, thanks again for your time. And if you don't
no
mind staying
problem.
on for 1 second, And everybody else, thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.